Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, and after my 2-week vacation hiatus, we had a few bugs around the studio, so they cleared up the bugs, and here I am, 4:30 instead of 4, and it's all good. Sort of. If you live in the United States, it's not so good, but if you live in Australia, things are great today. But that's no big deal. We're going to find a way to get through 4 years of insanity. And we certainly heard some insanity over the weekend on Meet the Press. Kristen Welker's interview was excellent. As I was talking with Vic Faust here earlier, she did a great job. But there were a few things that she left out, that she allowed to get through, that under normal circumstances she wouldn't have done. And I don't say that she was scared, which a lot of times people will throw those accusations around. We know they're being thrown at Mika and Joe at this very moment. This has been going on for 2 weeks at least. Saying that they're afraid of Trump, which clearly they're not. And I've got a clip here that we're going to run in a moment that really will show the kinds of things that are being done on the program. Morning Joe, really very good. Yes, hi Michael Kaysen, how are you? Good to see you on here. And all I can say is I'll give you an example. This is a really good example of where Kristen Welker allowed things to get away from her. Donald, of course, from the immediate start of the interview, I mean, initially, the first second that he started talking, he was lying. I mean, there wasn't hardly a thing that came out of his mouth that wasn't a lie. Now, for example, if I didn't notice, but if he talked about the weather, that might have been true, something like that. Or, he might have said that he was feeling well. Maybe he does. Maybe, of course, with him, if he says he's feeling well, then he's probably lying. But, because he lies. Just, in fact, I'll say this. I ran into a guy yesterday on an elevator. I've never seen this guy in my life. And he was with a friend, and they were talking about the interview, or the friend was. And this guy who I had never met, he said he didn't listen because he didn't want to hear the lies. I mean, everybody on Earth One knows what this is about. So anyway, let's back up to the beginning of this thing, and let's go to this conversation that they had about Donald saying that everything against him was dropped. So what they were talking about was if Donald was going to go after his political opponents, and he was saying that after what was done to him, which was so improper, and according to him, every one of these cases has been dismissed, and so he's no longer in any jeopardy. And then he said, well, Fonnie Willis, but that we'll get rid of that too. But here's the thing. It's all a lie. And really, if Kristen Welker had been at the top of her game, she would have said, they did find that you're a rapist. Now, I understand she might not have wanted to be that aggressive or assertive towards the president. Yes. Hi, Ben. Hello. Maybe didn't want to be that assertive. But here's the truth. The judge in that case said that the jury found that he had raped E. Jean Carroll. So when Donald said that he didn't do anything wrong ever, and that he had been found to have done nothing wrong, that everything had been dismissed, well, of course, that was a lie. And that's the whole point here. That's all he does is lie. And let's not forget, there's also $500 million against him from the state of New York. Another case which absolutely was not dropped and where he was clearly found to have defrauded insurance companies and banks. So when Kristen Welker allowed all of that to go, which, he was talking about Mar-a-Lago, the business with Aileen Cannon. Okay, Aileen Cannon threw it out, of course. And then it wasn't coming back because that was the end of Jack Smith. And then Jack Smith got rid of the other case, clearly, because he had no way of pursuing it. He couldn't even hold his job because Donald was going to fire him, and that was the end of it. Plus, Donald, now being president, is in a position to pardon himself on the election case that's federal. No doubt. That's true. But see, here's what else is going on that was left out of the conversation yesterday. Aside from ignoring the fact that this man is a rapist and he has defrauded insurance companies and banks. This has all been adjudicated in the courts. Aside from all of that, let's not forget that he's convicted of fraud in New York City, which, again, he can't get out of. And what's going to happen there? Hard to say. Will they come back in 4 years and sentence him? I don't know. That's all up to Judge Merchan. And whatever Merchan does, well, it doesn't change the fact that a jury found that Donald defrauds people. He's a criminal. He was criminally convicted. He didn't get out of anything. Look, here's why this is so important. Because listen to what he said. He said that all these cases were fake and that he did nothing wrong. Over and over, he said, I did nothing wrong. He raped a woman and was found by the courts to have raped the woman. He defrauded insurance companies and banks, and he was found by the courts to have done that. And then he messed around with the election business when he fooled around with the situation in New York. Obviously, the hush money, which people say, well, it's only hush money. No, it was an election fraud. And he was found guilty. So this is a man who is a convicted felon. I mean, no one took away that. No one took away the felony. No one said he's not a convicted felon. I understand he thinks he can go to the Supreme Court and get the Supreme Court to let him off the hook, and maybe he could. It's possible that the Supreme Court would say, hey, Donald, do whatever you want. Might be. But it hasn't happened yet, and the jury did find that he is now a convicted felon. So that's where Kristen Welker really allowed him to get away with a mess, because it just wasn't true that he isn't guilty and that he didn't do anything wrong. That's not true. He did things wrong, a lot. And what he says, and, he's got away with all of this. And, Michael Cohen has talked about this for a long time, that he plays games with the words and is very dishonest about it. But, he's going into this whole story yesterday about how the people who investigated him should be in jail. Now, he said they should be in jail. And when he was asked by Kristen Welker, will you pursue putting them in jail? That would be Benny Thompson, and then, of course, Liz Cheney, and then some others on the committee. Adam Schiff, of course, who's now a senator from California. But all of these people, according to Donald, should be in jail. But he says he wouldn't do anything about it. Although he then goes on to say, but, Pam Bondi might, and Kash Patel, once he takes over the FBI, he might go and start investigating these people. And so he's got all these ideas that he can get these enemies of his without saying, I'm going to get them. See, and that's the game here. He says, no, I'm not necessarily going to do it. He says, I could do it. He said, actually, I should, because they did it to me and I did nothing wrong. See, that's where she let him off the hook. He has done so much wrong. I mean, if he did nothing except for rape E. Jean Carroll, that would be enough. That would do it. We would not allow, I'm talking about voters, would not allow anybody to get into the Oval Office if they had been found in a courtroom to have raped a woman. And I understand people say, well, it's not rape. The judge says it's rape, but okay, let's say it's not rape. So is it okay to sexually assault a woman? Okay, it's not okay to rape a woman, but you can sexually assault her. That's okay. No problem with that. See, this is where a lot of what was going on in that conversation really fell apart, because people say to me, well, if you have evidence, then you can bring it up. And this is the point. There was evidence, plenty of evidence, but they didn't bring it up. Like I say, maybe Kristen Welker felt this was something to do on a different day. I don't know. I can't get into her head, but I can tell you right now that if she were interviewing anybody else, she'd have brought up every one of those points. And when the person kept saying, I didn't do anything, she would have said, okay, the courts did adjudicate you to be a rapist and somebody who defrauded insurance companies and banks, and you're a convicted felon, but let's move on. That's what she would do with anybody else. But she didn't do it with Trump. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people who think on Trump's side, who think that she went too far. Well, how could that be? How would you go too far in what she did? She actually held back. She pulled her punches. So I don't know. I guess you can look at it on either side, depending on if you're on Earth 1 or Earth 2. But Earth 1 and Earth 2 is not a joke. I mean, it's a real difference in an understanding of factual information. This is not just talk. This is real factual information that really ought to be put out here by saying now that Donald Trump, or allowing him to say that he didn't do anything. Well, that's really harmful towards somebody like E. Jean Carroll, who obviously was raped, certainly sexually assaulted, and I don't know what the difference is, but I've said many times in the past, I wouldn't on the air get into a conversation with anybody about the details in terms of what you have to do to a woman's body in order to be rape versus sexual assault. I mean, I just wouldn't have that conversation, and I never will. But I am saying that it is clear that this man did things wrong. So, I mean, this is not, I mean, I'm going to talk about some other things here that are debatable. But what I'm bringing up right now is completely not debatable. And before I go on to some of these other things, Joe, you want to pull up the clip? Let's listen to what they were saying on Morning Joe.
Might force the entire family to leave the country. And so when they talk about the hierarchy of people that they're going to remove from the country, yes, it starts with criminals, but he made it pretty elastic, and we should take him at his word because he's been following through on that.
Yep, and by the way, Wall Street Journal headline here talking about Donald Trump wanting to get rid of birthright citizenship. Let's just say here, that's not going to happen. That's a constitutional amendment, not going to happen. But still, the headline's going to be out there. People are going to chase after it. Mike Allen, a very, very good point that Jim just made. Whenever he was talking about persecution against people that investigated him, for the most part, it was more generalized. They should go to jail. Jack Smith for what he did, et cetera, et cetera. Are you going to do it? No, I'll let Pam Bondi look at it, Kash Patel look at it. But the one thing he was very specific about, as you all noted, was January 6th rioters that were going to be released. And my question is this. When push comes to shove, on January the 20th, on January the 21st, is he really going to pardon people that were violent, that beat the hell out of cops, that gassed cops, that used bear spray against cops? Because if so, there will be a tremendous backlash, even from people who voted for him.
No, that's right. And Joe, that's why the people around him, the people he's talking to, the people in his ear, people who are calling his cell phone matter so much, because we saw President-elect Trump repeat in this great interview with Kristen Welker the fact that he sees success as his retribution. He's talking about the golden age of America that he wants to create. And yet, absolutely, he leaned in to this. Kristen Welker asked him, oh, are you going to do this within the first 100 days? And that's when he said, first day. And Joe, I can tell you, as I talk to Republicans, as I talk to people in the Trump transition, they say that the Hunter Biden pardon will be a big part of their talking point if they go ahead with some of these pardons, that they will say he opened the door, it's a threat on the sweater, they absolutely will pull.
Okay, you can pull that off. Yeah, that's a good part of the conversation they were having this morning. I think it's unfair to say that Joe and Mika are going easy on Donald Trump. They are absolutely not. They are ripping him in every situation where the man deserves to be ripped. And as an example, one of the leading people in terms of claiming that Joe and Mika are scared has been one of their very good friends, and that's Steve Schmidt. And I listen to Steve Schmidt a lot. There's an online group of podcasts under what they call Substack, and I can tell you right now that what Steve Schmidt says is excellent. He's done a great job, and he's talked about the reasons why the United States should be extremely fearful of what Donald Trump is up to, and there's no question that the country should be. A lot of people aren't. There's no doubt that if you poll people right now, 75% in the last poll said that Donald Trump is doing a great job since being elected. Well, understanding, of course, that Donald Trump isn't doing any job because he's not president of the United States and he hasn't done a thing, although he was already taking credit for the 225,000 increase in jobs in the latest jobs report, which is hysterical that he would even say that, but it doesn't matter. He could say what he wants. You know, at this point, people do believe him. And like I say, 75%, that's a very high number, think that he's on the right track. Now, the problem with his right track is that it's so filled with lies. And these aren't lies that are just all debatable. Some are debatable. But most of them are just clear evidence-based fact that he's lying. And, you know, first of all, and this isn't a lie, you know, back to the birthright citizenship thing, he's not lying on that. He says he wants to get rid of it. But he's, at this point, not lying about it. He has lied about it in the past because what he has said is that the Constitution never intended for people who were born here to automatically be citizens, because if you read the language, it does say people who are born here who are under the jurisdiction of the United States government. And his claim in the past has been that they're not under the jurisdiction of the United States government. What are you talking about? That's, first of all, it's nonsense. Secondly, nobody has ever suggested that there's any way that that's true, but they are under the jurisdiction. If they're in the United States, they're under the jurisdiction of the United States government. And in any case, if you're born in the United States, you are a citizen. It's the way it is. And around the world, there are other countries that do the same thing. This is not just an American process, but it is an American process. So that's all that counts. And it's in the Constitution. And he's not going to get it changed. There's nobody that's going to go for that. And what he is going to do, undoubtedly, is going to grab some of these American citizens and he's going to throw them out of here. And he's already said in the past, in the recent past, that he is prepared to throw American citizens out of the country, specifically if you marry somebody from say, Venezuela, and he wants to get rid of you, then he feels like he can throw out the husband and the wife together. He also feels like he can throw out the entire family together, and then he doesn't have to worry about separating anybody anymore. He can just throw them out. I understand. He did say, he said this now, that the DACA people, and he recognized some of them have been here 10 years, 20 years, even longer. And they've been given protection by our government. And they're doing great things. And he even said some of them may have even started businesses and have been very successful. Unlike him, of course, we know he's started businesses and they always fail. But okay, that's not even the point. That's just me talking. But look, here's the thing. He said, we have to get together with Democrats and see if we can find a way to agree to keep these people here. Now, here's the deal. If you listen to the way he said it, and you just watch, because we're going to get to this point, and it won't be that far down the road. He is going to try to hold the DACA people hostage when he tries to get past other legislation that is so harmful and cruel to decent people who have done nothing wrong. And that's when he's going to have to pay a real price, because there are people that aren't going to like it when he starts holding these DACA, just good people, hostage over some kind of legislative argument that he's going to get involved in. That's when he brought up this thing about the agreement with Democrats, and if we can get Democrats to go along, that's where he's going. Because if he were talking about just protecting the DACA members, the people in that group, well, that would be nothing. The Democrats would go along with it. That would be it. They'd be protected. That's what Barack Obama did when he started this program in the first place. So we all understand where this is going. And if you don't understand what he's going to do to some people and how cruel he's going to try to be, I don't know. You could say one of two things. You could say he wants to be cruel. I don't know. Or you can say he's just not afraid to be cruel if that's what it takes to get what he wants. I don't know. You'll have to decide which one it is, and you'll have to decide also which one is worse, because the cruelty is unnecessary, and what he wants to do to people, well, it verges on criminality, but we'll see how far he goes, because there's so many different issues that are at stake. One issue, which really they started with in this interview with Kristen Welker, was the issue of tariffs and the economy. And I can tell you right now that every word that he uttered about tariffs was either a lie or completely based on 100% ignorance, because there is no question the tariffs are harmful to the American people. The tariffs will be used against other countries that have done nothing to us. Canada, as an example. And he even brought up the Canada story with Justin Trudeau, where, Trudeau came down from Canada to meet him at Mar-a-Lago. And he said, that is, Trudeau said to Trump, don't do this to us. Don't wreck our relationship over nothing, because, Canada isn't hurting the United States in any way. And then, Donald starts talking about that if Canada doesn't like it, they should just sign up to be the 51st state, and then they'll be okay. And, it's maybe something that somebody thinks is funny, but I assure you, Justin Trudeau didn't think it was funny. And I don't think it is funny when you think about the consequences that this can have economically across this country. And, so many people have talked about how during the first Trump administration, the markets just kept moving up. Well, they did. And as Barack Obama has pointed out, they moved up for 75 months under Barack Obama. He was responsible for the great success of the American economy from 2008 to 2016. Donald Trump rode that success all the way through to 2020. And then Joe Biden rode that success all the way from 2020 to 2024, during which time Donald Trump has pointed to what's going on. And what's he said? He has said that we're in a recession, that we're in a depression, that the economy is a disaster, that everything is going south, that we're being destroyed. None of which is true, but all of which has been accepted by a large percentage of the people in the United States. People who, by the way, went out during this Thanksgiving period, Black Friday, etc., and bought goods at a rate, at a clip that exceeded everything in history. I mean, people were just buying hand over fist. Was it smart? I don't know. I can't tell you what their finances are, and I don't know if they should have been buying so much. But their level of confidence is so high because they're making money, because they've got jobs, because all of the things that are being said against the economy are simply not true. Again, Donald Trump lying to people, and for whatever the reason is, people listen to those lies and they say, okay, it must be the truth. And I get it. I've told this story 1,000 times, if not more. If you're on television for 10 years and you're Marcus Welby, played, of course, by Robert Young, and people think, Marcus Welby could take out my appendix. And maybe he could. I don't know. He was a GP, general practitioner. Maybe he couldn't. But I understand he's a medical doctor, and somebody could think, well, gee, if I have appendicitis and I'm really in trouble, maybe I could be saved by Marcus Welby. Well, you might think that. And that might not even be so bad if you were desperate. But would you want Robert Young to take out your appendix? And the answer is absolutely not. Because the only way he could do it is to put his hand down your throat and pull it out. Because he doesn't know anything. He's not a doctor. Nor is Donald Trump a successful business person. Donald Trump is a failure in business, a loser. He has failed and lost for his entire business career. He's got 6 different bankruptcies of major businesses that he tried to make successful, in which failed. Now, Trump, if you listen to him, he'll say to you, well, those are strategies. Those were strategies that I used to benefit my businesses and myself personally. And they're things that you're allowed to do in order to avoid certain obligations, but legal. And see, here's the problem with that. We know that that's not the story. And anyway, what would you think about the morality of somebody who would take 6 major businesses and find a way to go bankrupt on your suppliers, for example, or on your vendors, people that come in and do work for you, like the piano tuner? Yeah. Hi, Charles. Charles brings up concepts, and I know he's talking about the whole health insurance business and, concepts of a plan. Everything out of this guy's mouth was a lie. From the moment he started the interview on Sunday morning until the interview was completed, everything out of his mouth was a lie. I'll get to that concepts of a plan for health insurance in a moment, Charles, but I'm going to finish up here just on the business side. Failures of a man who is telling you or us, the American people, that he has got a plan, first of all, for how he's going to bring us out of the depression, which we're not in. So that's the first part. I understand. If you don't have a job, you're in a depression. That's the old joke. If you're working, then you don't have a depression. So I get that thing, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about what's happening economically to the country. The country is growing. The country is successful. The country has brought down inflation. Now, be assured of this. There's a debate underway over what to do about inflation at this point. We're at 3% as opposed to the 2% where the Fed wants to be. So we will see how that plays out. And we'll see what the Fed is going to have to do. And the Fed has made it very clear that if the statistics come in a way that are not healthy, they will not keep lowering interest rates. Everybody's looking to next week to see if the next week will bring lower interest rates. And some of that's going to depend perhaps on the statistics that are reported this Wednesday, because there are some inflation numbers coming out on Wednesday. But see, this is the sort of thing that Donald Trump can't even talk about. And he didn't in the interview yesterday. He did not. He mouthed off about a lot of things and lied about plenty. But he really didn't get into the issues about inflation. He didn't talk about the fact that groceries over the last year have gone up a total of 1%, which is pretty small. I understand that the numbers are higher than they were 4 years ago because of the inflation that we went through. However, this is a complicated situation, and how you get to that next point, especially in terms of bringing prices down, it's complex. And actually, you might not want the prices to come back down, because in order to get them down, and especially, for example, the price of oil, you're not going to get it to come down unless you get into either a recession or worse. Now, we are going to experience that. It's stupid to think that you can go through all of history, future history, whatever. You can't do it without having some kind of a downturn. You will. That is absolutely coming. Today, Apple Computer and Microsoft were up while the market went down. And the reason was that there was a big report that came out that said that Microsoft and Apple are the number one and number two best managed companies in the world. And we know that's true. They are. There's no doubt about it. They're very successfully run. And on top of that, their stock prices have gone way up, all-time highs for Apple, not quite for Microsoft, but pretty close. And I can tell you that those companies have held the markets together up until this point. But if you believe that there is not a downturn coming, well, you're quite mistaken, because there is. And then let me say this. Donald got away with that first 4 years that he spent in the White House. And if he'd have had a second 4 years, well, look what happened to Joe Biden. The momentum was so great, everything continued to go up for 4 more years. So he could have made that could have worked for him, maybe. This time, though, I wouldn't count on it. First of all, he's going to create havoc with these tariffs. And he's threatening them, and he's going to do it. And the world is not going to simply back down and take it. They're going to fight back. They've got some economic power. And where's that going to leave us? Hard to say, but it's not good. That I can assure you. Now, let me assure you of this. What you can do right now and be extremely successful in acquiring dinner would be a trip to Wendy's. That's at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road. You know, I've been over to Wendy's, even though I've had 2 weeks off. I've been over to Wendy's, and I can tell you right now, place is still filled with people. They're doing great business. It's a great restaurant. They're at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, and they're still selling wings and smoked meat and hamburgers and cheeseburgers and patty melts. And as Greg has told us, he loves those French dips. They have that too, of course. Very, very good. And on top of that, salads, great drinks, and my favorite, the baby back ribs with the onion rings. I mean, this is just a great restaurant. Everybody loves it, and you can't go wrong. So check them out. And then don't forget the same great food over in Defiance. That's $29.99 South Highway 94 in Defiance. And that's Wendy's Roadhouse. Great food there. Great food in Chesterfield. You'll love it. That's Wendy's. Now, at 4506 Hampton, they still have the great jewelry that I have talked about for months here on the air. I saw Al just a couple days ago, and they had just lots of great people in there. I'm talking about customers. Everybody wants to do business with Al because he's just a good person, fun to be with. He knows his business. You can go in there and buy and sell jewels and coins, and you'll be happy because he's very careful to be sure he's fair to everybody. And then on top of all of that, I promise you that if they fix your watch, it'll stay fixed. Now, they fix watches too. This is a great jewelry store. It's over on Hampton. Al and his son, AJ, they run a great place. You'll love it. They design jewelry. They'll help you in every way possible. So go see Al at 4506 Hampton. That's Jules on Hampton. And then the Suits. Yeah, you know the Suits. They're over in Clayton at the St. Louis Suit Company. I was in there this week, and I can tell you, people were buying ties, and I was laughing because, you know, you got to be crazy not to go buy a tie for $5 at the St. Louis Suit Company. Those ties are fabulous. But the suits are great too, top quality, low prices, shoes, shirts, you name it. They still got those great overcoats. We got cold for a minute, then it turned a little warmer, but it's going to be cold again. You're going to need an overcoat, and you can get one at great prices at the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton, Forsyth and Central. Always. Jay and Nick, father and son, they run a great place with the whole family there to help as well. Check them out in Clayton. They've been there for 30 years. And I say 30 years, but let's face it, Telena's has been there for 40 years. No end to Telena's. You know, I was at Telena's over the weekend. In fact, I ate there with the owner, Mehdi, my very good friend. And when I left, after we had a great meal and talked to all the great people there at Telena's, afterwards, he ran back in the back room and he came out with his bread. And he said, Kaysen, you got to have this bread. This is so good. You won't believe it. He says, I know you don't like the calories, but you know, you've got people to serve this to. Just do it. Take the bread. So I took the bread back to where I live, and we got a bunch of the people together that live out there where I am. And we meet often for a lot of things, including they were watching the football game because they like Kansas City. Of course, it's a bad choice because I'm with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I suspect that they'll be the winners of everything this year, but we'll see. 10-3 for the Steelers, 12-1 for Kansas City. But, Kansas City's luck can't hold out forever. Field goal kicker kicks one that misses, but hits the goal post and then falls into place, and they win with the field goal. Yeah, I understand all that. Anyway, so we were watching, and they were eating the bread from Telena's, and let me tell you, they were just blown away. The bread was just unbelievable. This is not just bread. It's just not. Anyway, everything's like that at Telena's, and especially the spaghetti and meatballs, my favorite. You will love Telena's. They are right over next to Deerberg's over on Woods Mill and Olive. You can't miss them. You'll love them. They've been there for 40 years. Telena's. Okay. So there's more. I'll go to the healthcare first. And there's no question. What a liar. I mean, the man he doesn't know how to do anything except to lie. He says that Obamacare is horrible insurance. Of course, millions of people in America say opposite and are thrilled that they've got Obamacare. And, if you heard Donald, he was losing his mind because he doesn't even like the fact that we call it Obamacare, and he called it Obamacare. But at any rate, it's good insurance. It is. No question about that. It saves the lives of people in the United States. But here's the lie of all lies. He says that Donald, saved Obamacare, that Obamacare was rotten. I mean, he said flat out, he says, it stinks. That's, the presidential description of Obamacare by Donald Trump. But here's the thing. He claims that it's okay now, sort of, because he has fixed it so that you can live with it. Now, he says he wants to really have great insurance for everybody, but he's going to have to figure that out. And he was asked about this business about whether he's got a plan or whether he's just got concepts of a plan, whatever the heck that is. And he sort of admitted that he still has concepts of a plan, but he suggests that concepts of a plan is great, that's good enough. I don't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He really doesn't. And to say that he saved Obamacare, again, it's just like everything. Just a flat out lie. It's good insurance that people like. Would it be better if everybody had Medicare for all? Certainly a lot of people out here that believe that one. And that's not something that you can describe as a lie or the truth, because everybody's got to decide what they think. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But here's the thing. People who have Medicare insurance are generally very, very pleased with their insurance. And I can tell you that I know for a fact how it works and what the benefits are, and they're exceptional. Now, is it costly? Well, of course it's costly. It's especially costly for old people, because what happens to old people? They get older and then they start to die. And when they start to die, the cost of keeping them alive goes through the roof. That's just a fact. So, yes, Medicare has got some funding issues as the baby boomer generation gets older and then dies off. I mean, there's just no way around it. And that's something that our government really needs to address in order to shore up Medicare. One way to do it, and this isn't a concept of a plan, this is a plan. You give everybody Medicare, and then what happens is all these young people, they pay into Medicare, but they don't run up the costs because they're not all going to be dying, because they're not all 90 years old. And that's the whole point of insurance. If you're only insuring old people, you're going to have some financial issues. Now, no one's saying dump Medicare at this point. Well, there are some Republicans who are, but in general, I mean, we understand that Medicare is here to stay, and we just have to strengthen it. The way to strengthen it is to bring everybody into it and to be sure that you got all of these 20 and 25 and 30-year-old people paying into Medicare, but not taking the money out of Medicare because they're not all going to be dying. It's just the way it works. Insurance is a brilliant idea, but only insuring old people, that's got its risks. Those are obvious. So if you want to fix it, you can fix it. You could do this immediately. I mean, Donald could walk into the Oval Office and he could say, look, Medicare works. People in this country love it. 70 million old people are on this thing. Let's just bring in the young people who can pay into the plan and who won't take the money out. Donald could do that on the first day in office, and he'd be quite a hero. But he won't. And we all know he won't. Because you watch. He won't even have a concept of a plan. He's got nothing. He's got nothing except for a Medicare system that works and that could be used to insure everybody in the United States in a very, very positive way. It would work. But Donald Trump's president, and Donald Trump isn't worried about what works. He's worried about who he's going to put in jail who tried to convict him of crimes that, in fact, he committed. Gee, isn't that tough? Guess that's what we're supposed to do when we have a Department of Justice. They're supposed to bring people into the courts and accuse them of crimes when they have committed crimes. And Donald has committed them, and he has been found guilty of them. So trust me, there's a way to deal with all of this. But then the next problem is getting past the lies. When Hitler lies, people believe it. They did in Germany, and they're believing it here too. But when the people get into camps, you know, he's talking about putting people into whatever he wants to call them. He calls them all kinds of things. They're camps. They're bad places. If he does it, and he will, I'll bet, I would think he is. He says he will. Well, then we'll see. We'll see if the United States is different than Germany. Because, you know, if you do things that are cruel and illegal to people, it's not just a question of whether you do it to Jews. It's a question of whether you do it to anybody. I mean, I'll grant you, they're not going to put Jews in concentration camps this time. But if they do it to DACA, or if they do it to people who are married to illegal immigrants, or if they do it to anybody that's here in the United States looking for a safe place to live, well, you figure it out. Michael writes, have you read the book on tyranny? I certainly have. Timothy Snyder is amazing. What a great person he is. Michael says, I just started it for a book club, and it's about the signs of the fall of democracies. That's true. Timothy Snyder has written a great deal about this. He talks about it all the time. He's interviewed all over the United States. And really, this is just on topic for what, I'm discussing tonight. If you go out, whoever you are, and you go out tonight and buy yourself a copy of Timothy Snyder's book on tyranny, you will be doing yourself a favor. And he's got other great books that are well worth reading. I mean, Timothy Snyder is one of the great ones. So yes, Michael, I agree. I've read the book and his others as well. He is exceptional. So we're down towards the end, and listen, this narrative goes on, day after day, night after night. I will say that I haven't talked a lot about what's going on, for example, in the Middle East. There's a name now that we need to know, Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, and some people say that is the new and upcoming Che Guevara. I hope that's true. I hope that's true, and I hope this guy is on a different course than a lot of people fear that he might be, as a member of the Islamic radicals in the region. Certainly, they're not friends of Israel, but you never know. Things change, so we'll see what this guy is, and we'll find out pretty rapidly. One thing's for sure: Bashar al-Assad had to go. Should have gone a long time ago. Donald Trump not only supported Assad, not only supported him, and when I say supported him, he supported him in the murder of Kurds. When the Kurds were being attacked, and the Turks were involved in all of this too, and Donald said, not our problem. And he's saying that right now about what's going on in the Middle East. He wants to turn the problem over to the Russians and the Chinese and say the United States has no role. Well, the United States does have a role. We have a role all over the world. It's not a question of being the police of the world. It's a question of showing leadership in a way that is absolutely necessary, and that the United States has done for 80 years coming after World War II. We did the right thing, and it's clear he's not going to do the right thing. He was asked about Ukraine, and he said he's not going to continue to provide assistance to Ukraine. And you can only imagine how he's going to end this mess in Ukraine. He says he's going to end it right away, and he might be able to, but not on the terms that would be considered just by countries around the world. And of course, if you've heard what he said about NATO and how, yeah, if they do the right thing, we're staying in NATO. Yeah, if they do the right thing. And you realize that nothing is going to be the right thing as far as Donald's concerned. It's just not going to be. I mean, anybody that doesn't know this hasn't been around a Trump administration for 4 years, and we all have been. The lies will continue. The ignorance will continue. The cruelty will continue. And the question is, how strong will the institutions of the United States be in pushing back against this cruelty and this tyranny? Indeed, Michael. Okay. For Wenty's and Jules on Hampton and the St. Louis Suit Company and Telena's and some other great advertisers that are on their way. I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown.